We have Chris on the line. As soon as he tells me he's ready.
Oh, I'm ready whenever y'all are ready to roll.
We're just doing it.
All right, I'm going to put it in Q&A mode. If anybody wants to speak with the host, just press *6 and that'll bring you through to him. I am also going to put it in record so that we can upload it to our website when we're done.
Awesome. Yeah, we're recording on this end as well. And I'm just gonna say to anyone who's listening, feel free to jump in at any time. I've got some stuff prepared, but I like to play everything by ear because I just want to hear what the people are saying about this situation that we've got going on. And I just want to say greetings to everyone. This is episode 1 of We the People Are the Militia. And I think the title of the show is very important because I feel, and I think evidence bears this out, that we're using the most important words in the law in the title of the show. And that's the words that give the power to the individual in our society, our common law, which is the United States Constitution. And it's we the people because we ordain the government, we create the government, so therefore we can never be under the subject or under the jurisdiction of an entity that we create. And what enforces that? Well, according to the law, United States Constitution, where we're broadcasting from, which is Commonwealth of Virginia, the militia is the top law enforcement arm according to the law, which that's really the only thing that we can go by. And our alleged servants are taking an oath to uphold the Constitution, and yet that everything that they do is a violation of the Constitution. And in the title, Barbie and I were discussing, how we were gonna, describe what it is that we need to do to regain control of the government, and basically, I always bring it back to, and I always learn my information from smarter individuals than myself. I always bring it back to following the money. And basically, money runs everything that this government does. Everything in our society is controlled by money, and therefore that's where the power lies. And the individual American has absolutely no control over the institution or the object that controls everything that happens to them in their daily existence. So basically, our government, which is set up to have the people as sovereigns, it basically has the people turned into citizen slaves, and it's because the masses don't have any control over their the valuation of their currency, and we need to enforce the Constitution. And basically, the only way we're going to change anything about how our government functions is when the people have a constitutional valuation of our currency, and that's our property, and that's everything that we own. It's every concept that we have is monetized and controlled by the Federal Reserve Bank. And I always like to define things, because what we do in our videos and in all of our communications with the public is that we act as prosecutors. We're not just talking and saying the government is illegal and unconstitutional. We're documenting that we're saying this to as many folks as we can, and that we're citing the law. We're citing United States Constitution. We're citing Basel III Declaration, or actually I should say the Third Basel Accord, which is the contract that controls all the world's governments. And that's a private bank that controls everything. Excuse me, a private foreign bank that controls everything that the United States government does, and it's not just. And I'm talking about the Basel III Accord, and I'm talking about the Bank for International Settlements, but it's not just that the Bank for International Settlements controls the United States government. It's that the Bank for International Settlements openly controls all of the world's governments, and that they willingly comply through these financial agreements, which openly enslave the public through bonds and debt and taxes, and that the real elephant in the room with all of this is that not only is Greece and Cyprus insolvent, but the United States Federal Reserve Bank and United States government is insolvent and are continually defaulting on their fiduciary responsibilities under the unlawful rules that they themselves set up. So basically, that is everything in a nutshell, and we can get into the minutia from local election rigging to like I said, the functioning of the Third Basel Accord and how we can document all of the governments of the world, getting funding from this one source, and that now is the time for action, and the only action is concerted militia action, lawful militia action, in accordance with Article 1, Section 13 of Virginia Constitution and Article 2, or excuse me, Amendment 2 of United States Constitution, and this all segues in with what's going on in Greece. This is playing out in real time here in the United States, with the analysis of the rigged stock market. That's another thing that we're going to push forward in this program and in this show. That everything is rigged, from the stock market to professional and college sports. Everything with money on the line, it's being rigged and manipulated to maximize the profit, to maximize the control of the institutions that are benefiting from the status quo. And when we see the Greek issue, we'll see it being used over the years. Back in 2010, a Greek bond issue was used as the excuse for why there was a flash crash on the stock market. So we're just also pointing out to folks, if you want to do some high-level research, it's very simple. It's all hidden out there in plain sight, and they really only have a few things that they can go to. And Greek bonds, this has been an issue that they've been using as an excuse for the insolvency and covering up the insolvency of the entire global banking system. And it's coming to a head right now. And this all is tying in with not just financial staged events, but also with events that set up the number one modus operandi of this international banking cartel, which is funding all sides of all international military conflict. We see that in our generation, and we're living through right now. The staged global conflict was escalated to the point where it is right now, which has created innumerable debt, uncountable debt, and that was set up by the staged 9/11 false flag attacks. Obviously, we all know that that what the official government rhetoric set forward in the 9/11 Commission report was false. We all know that the legal counsel and six of the members of the actual commission themselves stated that the commission report was based on lies from every government agency and every institution that they interviewed. And that trillions were made through short selling and insurance fraud and etc. So those are the kind of things that we're moving into and showing how this moves towards global conflict, in which these international banking cartels and as headed by the Bank for International Settlements always funds all sides and controls all sides. So I apologize if I'm talking over somebody. I thought I heard somebody talking.
No, I just wanted to throw out there, though, real quick, with all the new callers calling in, if anybody would like to ask a question at any time, please hit #6, and that'll put you in the queue to talk to the host.
Yeah, please. Yeah, if anybody has anything they'd like to say, I mean, a lot of this stuff, I think maybe those listening to the call might be familiar with these concepts of international hedging, international hedge funds hedging everything from internationally traded corporations to hedging by financing and controlling all sides of a armed military conflict. Today we see this exemplified in ISIS. Is somebody's coming through? Yeah, come on through, please. My apologies. I will bear with me. I'll get caught up to speed with the technology. But as many of you who are listening know, ISIS is headquartered in the Ronald Reagan Building in Washington D.C. It's got staging areas and offices throughout the world. And what I'm talking about is ISIS, and I urge everyone to use an internet search. I use Google, but it'll all pop up whether you're using Yahoo or Google. If you just do a Google search for ISIS Pennsylvania Avenue, and what will pop up if you're not familiar already with this information, it'll shock you. What will be shown is a military intelligence government contractor called ISIS, which operates in the Middle East and does all sorts of operations for the military and is a client of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Coalition Provisional Forces and Khaki International, and the list goes on. But basically, that's what it is. And if that's not enough, we all know, who are in the know, according to Edward Snowden and according to many other intelligence analysts, that the alleged leader of the so-called group called ISIS is a man called, allegedly, al-Baghdadi. That's what he's been named. But most folks have seen the pictures of John McCain with this guy who's alleged to be named al-Baghdadi, and many others know this al-Baghdadi as a Mossad agent called Elliot Simone, or Shimon Elliott. And there we'll segue into what ISIS is at its basic core level, and how that name ISIS has been used over the years for something called the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. So whenever we're talking about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we're always talking about Israeli Zionist interest. And it's always a show that who's training these folks? Israeli. Who's arming them? Well, that's the United States. That's Israeli interests. That's the MI6. That's the CIA. That is the Mossad. This is well documented, and this is the kind of thing that where we're displaying for everyone to see that this is all a fraud to take. Yeah. Oh yes, ma'am.
You have a question from a caller.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Caller, you're now engaged. Go ahead. Hey, Chris?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to let you know that I put you on top of it. We can't have people in the United States speaking out like this.
Well, I think it's imperative. I mean, it's. I wish I could spend my time doing something else, but I don't think there's anything else more important to do.
Well, this is Judson. I just thought I'd.
How are you doing, sir?
This is the Swamp Fox, and I know that what you're trying to do on the East Coast, there's people all over the nation that have put together these podcasts. And I want to welcome you to the family.
Thank you, sir.
There's a huge number of us that are gathering. And Richmond, Virginia is well represented with Chris Dorsey.
Yeah, and Glenn Sutphin is with me right now, and there are a number of us, but I appreciate that, sir. I watch your videos and I share them, and I agree, and I we're talking about the macro right now, but I have similar issues with family land grabs that occur in Hagerstown, Maryland, to the issues that you've had with your family in upstate New York. So I find that we have the same issues, and they take our property away in the exact same unlawful and thieving manner.
Correct. Now, Glenn knows me. If Glenn's listening, I want to give a shout out to Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn.
And, we've been collaborating for a long time,
Yeah, Glenn's waving from behind the camera, and we've got a lot of work to do around here, but we've already documented. We've already done the hard work. We've already documented beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is absolutely no legitimacy at all to our government, and that everything that they do is only a fraud to take as much away from us as they possibly can. When we have the rights to everything, when we are the lawful power and authority, and we're just not going to stop until we see a restoration of our property, and that we are lawfully compensated.
This is the plans, as I understand them, from affiliation with Militia for the last 35 years, is that the grassroots across the nation are more and more coming together and standing up and advising this completely rogue, out of control, horrifically corrupt establishment that there's 320 million of us, and there's only a couple of 100,000 of them. We outnumber them greatly. So I can't agree with you more.
Yes, sir. I think now is where we have to start coming up with plans of action and movement, and we are unfortunately not at this point reaching the masses. And I think we are going to take the masses will follow. The masses are sheep. They have been dumbed down to the point where they are, for the most part, incompetents. Most of the adults in the United States of America, for many different reasons, are like incompetent children. And so they follow along with everything, and they think that the most important thing every week is who wins a football game, which has already been rigged by gambling interests. So we need to come up with a critical mass of folks that can think rationally and that are honorable and that are competent enough to take over for these out of control, treasonous, sociopathic traitors that the masses have handed all of their property over to. So I would love to think that it's us against them, and that it's 99% of the population versus 1% of the population. But I think it's going to be more like 2% of the population versus like 0.5% of the population, or something like that. But it needs to, because most are just going to be spectators in this. But I do want to segue into some of the actions and that I'm advocating, because I advocate tactics, and I take actions and advocate tactics for this movement. And one of the latest of my tactics, when I require compensation for various specific crimes that I lay out against government officials, I always, at this point forward, and I started with the Richmond chief of police, video myself, and sometimes Glenn and others are with me, requiring that the police hand over their weapons, that they disarm, because this is the big movement, and this is, I think, where the rubber's going to hit the road with our movement. We videotape military vehicles flying over and driving through our neighborhoods, and some of them are United States military, some of them are military vehicles of the Virginia State Police, some of the Richmond City Police, some of the Federal Reserve Bank Police. But what we are seeing over and over again, no matter what entity of this enforcement arm of the banking cartel they are gaining more militarized vehicles, that they are flying over our houses and driving around in our neighborhoods. So I think it's only the right thing to do to start a movement, to start requiring the constitutional handing over of the military equipment that is being used to shut down American cities. Like Boston was shut down over a false flag attack. They shut down the fourth largest city in the United States, a military shutdown, allegedly for a 19-year-old guy who gets drunk at fraternity parties. That we can't have that stand, and it's unlawful too. And basically, I think that we need to start a national movement to disarm the police, because the police are only the enforcement arm of these thugs. I mean, we have so much overwhelming proof that the police are nothing but stooges for the government hacks that control the city, state, and city, state, and federal governments. Excuse me. And this is in complete contradiction to the law. We are funding these folks to take our guns away, and what are they using that? Are they disarming themselves? No. They're arming themselves more. Why do they want to arm themselves more while at the same time they want to take our guns away? I don't like that equation. That equation is unacceptable to me. I require the law be upheld. So therefore, in Virginia, and I've done some background work on the Texas Constitution and how this can be done in Texas, and also Maryland, my home state of Maryland, and Pennsylvania. I have family ties to Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and all of those states require me to always be well more armed than any government agent who is one of my servants that would ever approach me. And so that seems like it would be lawful that the people, in the form of a militia and individually, have more arms than their alleged servants. So I'm going to read from Virginia Constitution, and this is a basis of a lot of our work, and I'll get into the minutia of this one section of Article 1 of Virginia Declaration of Rights, and this is Section 13. That a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. That standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases the military should be under strict subordination and governed by the civil power. So, I don't think anybody needs to be an expert in legalese or run to Black's Law Dictionary to find out what those words mean, because the author is quoted on what the militia means, and the author of that is George Mason, and he states that I may be paraphrasing it. I've seen this written a number of different ways, but that the militia is the body of the people, with the exception of a few government officials, and I think it says it all there. It is irrational and it is schizophrenic to have a functioning system in which a group, which is the people, create a tool to protect their property, and then through some sort of scam, the property of the people that created the government now becomes the property of the government. And that is really not accurate, because it's really only the property of the bondholders of the governments of the world. That's more of the abstraction, and we can talk about the macro and the micro, but we could segue in, and maybe we'll do it. And if folks out there listening, want to steer the conversation in another direction, please let me know. We can flip on a dime as far as discussing every aspect of this criminal institution that has enslaved the masses and even attempts to enslave the people who are resisting it constantly. That's basically my occupation, is resisting tyranny, resisting slavery. It's a full-time job, because it's not easy to function in society without getting your car inspected, or without a driver's license, or not agreeing to any banking contract, and therefore or filming these things.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have another caller with another question.
Awesome. Yeah. Please, caller. Go ahead.
Hey, Chris. Hey, thanks for taking the time this evening. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
I was just kind of curious. Have you heard the various rumors that roll about with the elite who say and claim that they want to merge with machines and basically turn themselves into a god?
Yes. Transhumanism is a big movement among the elite, and I'm not an expert, but I'm fairly well familiar with the fact that that's one of their main motivations. They view themselves as gods, and and they want to have their interests go on forever, and that's one of these sick, anti-human motivations of these elite who point nuclear weapons at every direction, and then before they finish doing that, they create their escape route underground or through rocket ships or things in orbit, whatever have you. They do have these crazy plans where they have not come to grips with their own mortality and the fact that we're all people and
We're finite.
we are finite, and this is another one of their motivations. I do know different aspects of this, this viewing themselves as God quality. I urge folks to definitely look into transhumanism, and I thank the caller very much. And also look into a lot of this stuff that is driving the banking dynasties, and that's that these folks think that they are reincarnations of a messiah that was known as Sabbatai Zvi, and also Jacob Frank, who claimed to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zvi or Sabbatai Zevi. And that the Rothschild family, the Warburg family, the Schiffs, etc., they think that they are connected to the Frank and therefore are reincarnations of these gods. That's another thing I'd like to tie into, maybe if we can talk about ISIS and the fact that ISIS is being used everywhere, and I will even get as abstract as to make folks not make folks or invite folks to think back over the summer when we were having that ice bucket challenge craze, I should say, and everyone was getting ice buckets thrown on themselves, and it was a big social media craze. But what is that? ISIS. They play these little games, these little word tricks. And so ISIS, what is ISIS? Okay, that's the ancient Egyptian goddess. And a lot of these obelisks that one sees everywhere, that ties into the story of Isis and Horus and Set. So I invite folks to to do background and start seeing that these at the end of the day, these are what they would call lesser magic tricks. And these are jokes. This is them letting us know. This is them displaying everything which is hidden in plain sight. And this is that they get more power from us, and this is obvious because they have our complicity, because we know that is what's going on. We know that when there is $4 to $6 quadrillion in circulation, which is makes every single man, woman, and child on the planet a multi-billionaire, and that could never be spent. That amount of money, which is 1,000 trillion, and there's $6 quadrillion in circulation right now. So that could never be spent. All the money that's in circulation that they're playing these games with, that they're resetting the stock market with when they turn it back on and turn it off again. They're just creating these bad assets out of nothing, and it's never going to stop until we the people start retaking everything of value. That's what's going on in Greece now, where Greece can't do any more deals with their creditors, which is the only thing that's going on, because all the money that's going to go to Greece is going to go straight to their creditors. But that doesn't mean anything. That just means that the creditors of Greece can continue to charge rent on every valuable piece of property or every natural resource of everything in Greece. So we, the people, need to regain control of our hard assets, farmland, buildings, property, anything of value, the computer programs. And this is our goal at the beginning and end of every day in Richmond, Virginia, is to go into the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank and force, through mandate of law, enforce lawful coinage of money. And that means that everything of value that is put forward in the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank, it will be equally distributed amongst the residents of the states that those banks serve, as mandated in the law. So we will never, ever, ever get anything accomplished until we get the valuation of our own currency. Our currency is based on what is worst for us, and it will never change until we change the valuation of our currency to what is best for us. It seems like very simple concepts.
So let me ask you one more question, since I'm on a roll here, and you are too.
Yes, sir.
How do we go about doing that? That has been the ultimate question that I have been asking for a very long time.
Okay.
How do you go about getting possession of the currency back into the people's hands where it should be?
Okay. Well, here, basically, I think it's a multi-step process, and I like to be very open about my plans, and not just my plans, but the plans of the people, and what I and we, the people around here, view as good tactics to take. And basically, we contact the institutions that we are dealing with, and we videotape them violating the law. We talk to them with certain language, like when I tell the chief of police that I want his gun and the guns of the police force. I use the word require, because we're carrying out a lawful order. We're requiring it. We're not asking permission. We're requiring it. And so what I suggest, and a lot of what we do is this is I'm putting out propaganda as the arm of my ancestors. I am we the people, and because my ancestors were around and were amongst the people when this document was put in, and even before that. So I'm not going to say like, we need to figure out a way to ask permission of this government that was formed by us for them to give us the stuff that they're never going to give us back. So we need to force them to do it. We need to force them using the court of public opinion, embarrassing them publicly. We need to have campaigns against them. And basically, we need to do anything under the law that we need to do to abolish this government in every sort of way. And that means everything. Now, I'd like to start talking about tactics, so as to be as direct as I can. And I apologize if I'm not the greatest communicator. I'm working on getting these complex thoughts out. We need a critical mass. Say, we'll compare it with the Bundy Ranch. Say if we came somewhere around Washington, D.C. or Richmond, Virginia, and we had as many armed militiamen in front of the Federal Reserve Bank as were out at the Bundy Ranch, I think that would probably be the first story on the every news outlet in the world.
Yeah.
Because we've already gone through. Just responding if the individual is listening who asked a question about whether we hand documentation of these crimes that we are catching the government officials in, whether we hand them, and I've got hours of video of doing that, from the chair of the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank to congressmen to senators. I mean, and basically they can't say anything other than this is correct. We need a critical mass of armed Americans to come forward and say, like, we're going to stand by the law, and here it is. We're going to lay it out.
Now you're talking the right language, because if you're talking about protesting, in my eyes, that's long been passed. We need to stand up and demand this.
Require, because we require of our servants, because they're our servants. We require that you hand it over. It is required. It's not something, a demand can be negotiated. A requirement cannot be negotiated. We do require. I agree 100%, sir. And I will say that we use, the gun is used for many different purposes, and when we do go down to the Federal Reserve Bank, and when we do have correspondence, and when we do talk to these government officials, we are always armed. And a lot of the times, the police, they will not like to show up at a place where they are outgunned. And we need to have, we will, we do have conversations with these police officers. It's always taped. But they do hear us. They do hear what we're saying. And they do comprehend what we're saying, even though they are violating the law every day when they wake up in the morning and when they go to bed at night. But we do need a critical mass. That's the thing. We need a critical mass.
Two people don't cut it.
Right. We see that we need these out in the open discussions about strategy, because what we also see is that the opposition to the government is controlled by the government. And they lead everybody in the absolute wrong direction. And every time one of these protest movements that seems to be associated with something constitutional gets steam, it implodes and is exposed as a front for the Rockefeller Family Fund, the Tides Foundation, the Russian government, the United States government, XYZ local police force, XYZ bank. So, it's as simple as that. We've got a lot of folks out there that are making a lot of money off of the militia movement, that are making a lot of money off of the so-called patriot movement, etc. But they aren't really, they're not hitting the bullseye. They are, they're beating around the bush. We need to, we have plans. We set forward with folks. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Brandon Raub, who is a United States Marine veteran who was abducted in his house about 10 miles away from where we're sitting right now. And he was held against his will because he was saying that the government was complicit in 9/11 attacks. And basically, that's what happens. And a lot of folks, they glommed on to this, issue and subject, and then it just disappeared. But what I'm saying is that we've all had discussion. I'm talking about Brandon, myself, family members of Brandon's, other Marine veterans. I mean, you name it, high-ranking former military officials. And what we say is that we've got to do it. We can talk about all sorts of tactics. I mean, we can outflank every government official and every police officer at every meeting when we get down and go in with a plan. But we got to make the big tactical moves. We need a big gathering, and we need kind of a single-minded determination of basically everything that we have put forward as a figure of authority in our current structure is our enemy, and we need to unwind this system before it's too late, before they really start with the left and right nuclear false flags, and before they start shutting down every city like they did Boston, we need to start making these moves in the open. Everything public and everything with given as much attention as can be given, because we're standing on the law. We have the law on our side. We have, that's another thing. Why, if we just keep everything honest, then we're much better off monetarily, spiritually, psychologically. Our health is much better. We just need to stand by the truth, stand by kind of the, nature of our common law, which is our rights are infinite until we infringe on others' rights. And then there is, common law to settle those disputes. And it doesn't mean that the government controls everything and that we have to ask permission of our servants to have basic human rights and have access to our own property. So, it's crunch time. I'd be happy to hear from others who have thoughts on kind of spearheading this operation of restoring the law, restoring sanity to government. That we've got a lot to think about. We have not even really touched on some of the hot button issues as far as our government not only being controlled by a private bank, but our government basically being controlled by a foreign country, and but not just one foreign country, but mostly one foreign country, because when we talk about the Federal Reserve Bank, we're talking about an institution that is headed and fronted by dual Israeli citizens, and there's a dual Israeli citizen that runs the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. His name is Jeff Lacker. Janet Yellen is the head of the Federal Reserve Bank Board, and Stanley Fischer, who is the real brains behind the current operation, former head of not only the IMF, but also as of 2013, Stanley Fischer was the president of the Bank of Israel, and then maybe we'll segue. We'll just touch on that a little bit, and we can segue into the activities in Tel Aviv and get to the real power behind the throne. And I'm using those terms literally and figuratively. We can start talking about the Rothschild family and their strategic interest in the state of Israel. And I just recommend and suggest to others, if they're interested, to do a Google search for Tel Aviv, Rothschild Boulevard, and international banks, and it will show all of the most powerful banks in the state of Israel, and all the most powerful international banks have locations not only in Tel Aviv but on Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv, and it's pretty open and shut, and the circle is pretty much finished. When you follow the money, we can get into the intricacies of the Zionists versus the Jesuits, etc. But they're intermarrying. They are one and the same. The Zionist, is a new name for an old concept, pushed forward by ancient Talmudists, the so-called Venetian black nobility. It goes back before that. But again, that's important, but it's just an element of what we face. It's just one of the elements of what we face, and it is genealogical and bloodline connections. That's how this operation functions. It's the lifeblood, if you will, and that's another carefully chosen word. But there's also a converse angle to that, meaning that this is a faction, and that everything in these political worlds and these political intelligence operation runs through factions and tactics. And bloodlines. That's a good way to use factions. That's one of the best ways and the most secure. But it's not the only, and it can also be used against those who use it, because that's another concept that we're pushing forward. This is the psychological judo, where the tyranny that we face is so strong that we must use its own strength to defeat it, because it's very top heavy, because it's run through the sociopathy of its masters, and they're the worst human beings on the planet, and some of them, as maybe the former caller stated, maybe more or less human, some more than others, but this system, it needs to be abolished. That's one thing that we know. The law demands we abolish this system, and I urge everyone, just on a basic, more simple, vein, not talking about international conspiracy or anything of the sort, just asking that folks in their daily life don't agree to anything that's against your best interest. If somebody, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey Chris, I just wanted to let you know your first hour is up. I think you're doing absolutely wonderful, and I wanted to give everybody a chance. If anybody else has any questions, please press pound 6 so that you can ask him a question. It'll put you in the call queue. We've had some people leave, we've had some people come back, and new people. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns that you'd like to address, press pound 6 and that will switch you through so you can talk to Chris. Chris asked, I got a comment for you too.
Oh, yes, please.
Rothschild is one of my favorite groups to harass. You do know that this past year, I believe it was in November, it might have been October, Madame Rothschild passed away.
Yes.
And her will is still in litigation, and so child gets lynched.
Very interesting. I want to delve into that a little bit more, and I also want to segue into talking about the connections, and I think that this is maybe why this is still in litigation, because there's probably a lot of interest all over Europe, including Russia, that they don't necessarily want to publicize. They don't necessarily want to put in somebody else's hands right now, because one thing that I know is that wherever there's something of value, a Rothschild owns it. And when the Russian oil began to go from being nationalized to being privatized, N.M. Rothschild brokered the deal. When Russia's top oil billionaire was allegedly imprisoned by the Putin administration, the government of Russia, his shares of the most valuable oil company in Russia, Yukos Oil, was transferred over to I think it was Edmund Rothschild. So I think that it's really key, and that they don't want to let too much of the cat out of the bag. Yeah, that happened a while ago when she passed. She's famous for wearing that Baphomet necklace, and she had a lot of interest in the family wine business, but it goes much deeper than that wine business with the Rothschilds, and they've got their hands in everything, and sometimes folks they'll tell me, and my fellow researchers, that we've got it all wrong, and that it's not the Rothschilds, but it's just where the rubber meets the road. We know enough to know that the Rothschilds have their hands in everything. They control the largest aluminum refinery in Siberia. That's the largest aluminum company in the world. They control it. It's in Russia. They control the conveyance of the nationalization to privatization of the Russian oil company. They own the majority stocks, and all of these corporations and all of these so-called oligarchs, they're only minor stockholders in these Rothschild-owned central banks. And again,
You have another question, sir.
yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Hey, caller.
Hello, this is Skip Stranahan, housekeeper from up here in Lake George, New York. Up here, been doing this for about 30 years, or what you're trying to do now. And I'd like you to know that the people of these United States are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, and not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the man who perverts the Constitution. These Rothschilds, that's just a word for Red Shield. They're the people that control the money, and the reason that they control you is because they control the press. They actually create money from our ink and our paper, from what they call a fiat currency, which fiat simply means to give value. You could take a roll of toilet paper and run it through the press and give it the same value. And that's why we have this massive inflation we have today, and that's why they're controlling us, because basically they're freaks who want to have complete control. They're not satisfied with control. Lord Acton said it well. He said absolute control. Absolute power absolutely corrupts. And so we're dealing with men who are all their egos, who have absolute power and absolutely intend to corrupt everybody. When the people wake up and take their control back, they'll change what's going on here.
Amen. I mean, that's it. That's everything in a nutshell. That's everything.
Like I say, I'm 20 or 30 years here from East Coast and West Coast, and it's about unity, and it's about us respecting or acceptance and responsibility. I served during Vietnam under Bradley. Bradley said, "We lead by example. We do it with integrity, and people will follow." And so, if we lead these small groups and we organize these groups under civility, where we're not causing mayhem while we're doing it, and educate them, we'll achieve our goals here that you're trying to achieve.
Well, I really hope that's what happens. I think that's a must. It's eventually going to happen. Eventually, this system will implode. Eventually, the focus is going to be a target on the fronts, back, and sides of the bankers, regardless of if it's done in an orderly, lawful manner, or whether it's done as the ship goes down. So I agree 100%. This is a banking scam. It's a printing press, but as was said before, it's not even about printing paper money anymore, because there's only about like 1% of enough paper to back even a quarter of the money in circulation now. It's about algorithmic computer programs that are constantly reset, constantly manipulated, that create and monetize debt by the quadrillions. And I agree. I agree.
They create money out of thin air. They cannot fail because they have so much money to burn that they can literally buy the world, these people. They have over 40% of the currency in their possession. And probably, if you knew the truth, they probably have a lot of the gold that was in the Fort Knox and other places in their possession by now, too. But we need to stop the central bank that's operating in the United States, the Federal Reserve. We need to get those people out of there. Jefferson would not have allowed it to stay. We're allowing them to create this currency out of thin air that they're buying the world with.
Hey, Skip.
Yes.
Hey, this is Barbie Rogers. I'm actually the founder of Patriots Information Online. Welcome to the network. I know you're a new caller. I'd like to clarify something, though, about Fort Knox. There is absolutely, positively no gold or silver there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't been for a couple of years.
Yeah.
There was some in New York, but they took care of that with 9/11.
Absolutely, I agree with that, too. I agree that a Jewish Mossad was involved in 9/11.
Of course.
But we got to our security system with those planes, with box cutter knives. If anybody's ever followed the Truth Seekers and followed the architects' videos and whatnot on that thing, it's physically impossible. I worked with a unique group of people from the United States government called USSATC. We were a test division. We operated in what we called the codes and controls. Without the controls, the codes could not be deciphered. And these people have no history today. They don't understand their history. They don't know what went on, so they're never going to know what's going on.
I agree. I agree 100%. And just to go along with the the angle with the gold and the tie, dovetail that in with 9/11. As I just briefly interject. Title 31 of U.S. Code, it demands a yearly audit of all of the gold in the Federal Reserve Bank system. It has never been done. We have directly had contact with an individual called D.P.V. Smith, who is general counsel of the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank, asking them many, many questions, including about the default of the Federal Reserve banking system when it comes to calls on a third party's gold. So basically, saying that we don't have any guarantee that there is any gold anywhere, and that when you talk about the gold market, for each piece of paper gold that someone allegedly owns, for each ounce, there's between 100 and 1,000 other owners. So this is another just derivatives-based system, and yeah, the gold has disappeared, and we don't know where it is, but okay, then we'll tie it into 9/11 because a lot of gold disappeared from the Trade Center complex, as Barbie mentioned, and we'll say that the Mossad was involved, which obviously Israel did 9/11. The Mossad carried out the attacks. It was a Mossad explosives team that took down the Trade Center complex and that profited from the insurance fraud and we can only presume confiscated the gold.
Wait a minute, I'm going to stop you there because you went up to the insurance fraud. Let's explain the insurance fraud because a lot of people don't understand it.
Okay.
When the Twin Towers fell and burned, and as we all know, it was a conspiracy of some kind. Doesn't matter who did it because we know it was a setup. Those people were killed on purpose. Now, the gold that was in the bottom of Twin Towers, Federal Reserve that was there, it took 10 years for them to file with the insurance company for the gold. After 10 years, the insurance company did pay off for the amount that they said that they have in there. They had no records to prove it because everything supposedly burned. They had no records to prove anything. But the insurance company did pay it off. That's something else that we really need to look at because what did they pay?
Well, I guess that's where the Greenbergs and AIG, I would say, they come in on a lot of this stuff. Kroll Associates, I would say, is a place to look for the answers to those questions because this is a lot of insurance fraud. And Glenn,
You did own Building 7.
well, yeah, and then there's also the insurance fraud of the just strictly the insurance on the building, which was owned by Larry Silverstein and his partner, another Mossad agent named Frank Lowy. But it is very complex and it's anything of value. If you follow the trail, you'll find where it leads, and this has to do with a lot of the every agency that's in on this cover up, even the contractors who are taking away the evidence at the crime scene. Turner Construction, there's a lot behind their involvement in various other frauds and scams and false flag operations involving the government down to the contractors working on the site. So I'd be interested to hear more about your thoughts.
I wonder how much the painters got that were there every night for the last 3 months before the towers were attacked. It's known that they were there every night in white vans. They were seen going in at night, coming out in the morning, and they were painting the stairwells, elevator shafts, and walls here and there. And of course, we all know paint chips contain nanothermite.
Well, I'm familiar with of course with that, and if you lose me, it'll just be for a second. I'm losing some juice on my phone, but also that reports. I don't know if y'all are familiar with reports of the Israeli Mossad explosives and demolitions team that was living inside of the Trade Center complex, and that they didn't even have to have their be given complete access or keys. They were living inside the Trade Center complex, and they were there to document it. They were picked up. Mossad agents by the hundreds were picked up in a sting operation, and also.
I'm kind of curious. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to ask you, have you heard of the equation put together, which I firmly myself believe is what took place, that planes aren't really used in what we all seen, which supposedly hit the World Trade Centers, that it was a 3D holographic image created by Star Wars back in the Ronald Reagan years, and it's also a part of Project Bluebeam, where planes did not actually hit the building. It was a 3D holographic image because it's been shown on YouTube, the video of the wing disappearing on the front side of a building. I'm just curious to find out what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I'm familiar, and what I can say is that it is possible, and I've also seen videos with no planes and not even a holograph. So I know that that those buildings were demolished through controlled demolition. I think it is possible and probable that the planes that were alleged to hit those buildings, and I'm sure no plane hit the Pentagon. I do know that for a fact. And the other subject is interesting conjecture that I research and study, and I think I think that I like to speak authoritatively on things that I can verify, and that it is very interesting and thought provoking. And yes, I'm aware of that, and I definitely think that there's a possibility that no planes hit any of those buildings. But I'm not saying that I know that for a fact, but I know that we've been lied to about everything, and this would be just another edition. As many of us have heard, the 9/11 truth movement started well before the 9/11 attacks. So I always keep that in mind as well. But yeah, if anybody's got anything, just go right ahead.
I don't know if I'm still live or not, but I think it's all interesting because this money, this debt-based fiat currency is worthless without any gold, without any silver, without any backing behind it. It just becomes your slavery that's backing.
Oh, well, that's what it is, and it's it's also our farmland. Because farmland is the most valuable asset. That we can have. That's where all the rich folks put their money. They buy expensive, valuable art, and they buy valuable farmland, amongst other things. But those are the two big ones. And so yeah, we're bonded out. I mean, that's one thing I'd like to touch on a little bit is the idea that this money is created, like you say. I mean, it's basically created out of thin air, and they're overvaluing us, as far as the money goes, and this is, through the creation of, municipal, national, so-called sovereign bonds. And so, yeah, we're bonded out. Our slavery is bundled up and sold on the open market, and that's what creates the money. So, to put it very simply, in these kind of colloquial truisms, our system is based on we, the people, borrowing money from ourselves at interest. And so, it seems like one of these non sequitur, non-starters. It would almost be like, preferable, and I'm only, saying this tongue in cheek, to have, someone with a computer brain to, to digest this information. That we, the people, are the creators of the money, and it's always based on our ability to create the money, and when we have to get the money that we need to use, we have to borrow it from ourselves, and we also have to pay interest. And who are we paying this interest to? Who are we in debt to? I mean, we've already answered the questions, but again, it's like things that folks need to think about every day. And this is another thing I'm somewhat controversial for saying certain things, because I'm a political figure locally, and when I go up and I speak at a school board meeting or a city council meeting, and I say, if you send your kids to Richmond City Public Schools, you are endangering your child, and you are making an incompetent decision, because the schools are the problems. Folks, they're jobs. The problem is that we don't have jobs. The problem is that all the jobs are worthless. For no good, they serve no good purpose. They're just to perpetuate the system. it is a negative. It is a negative to get the economy rolling. It is a negative to keep the economy propped up. Because what does it do? It just tightens the noose around the people. It doesn't bring them out of poverty. It creates more debt for them. It doesn't do anybody any good to go to a 4-year college. It just ensures that they will be in debt. I mean, when folks wake up and go to work in the morning, I want to tell them, and I do this very publicly, you're doing bad things. You're wasting your time and the time of others. You work and serve criminals. And this is what I say to folks when they pay taxes, when they get their car inspected, when they do anything like that. We do not agree. We are non-assumption, and we don't go along with any of this stuff. Because I know how it works. Why would I go along with a fraud? I mean, that would make me really stupid. I mean, but everything's a fraud. Everything about our society and the way it functions is fraudulent and negative and against the best interest of humans and all living things. So, why are folks so happy to go along with it? It's a good question, but I don't really think they are happy to go along with it. I think that they have just had certain parts of their brains turned off. And we need to turn their brains back on. And maybe we can segue this into some of the other activity that we engage in and we encourage others to do, which is just to ignore all the laws. I like to videotape myself consuming cannabis on federal property, especially court property like the federal courthouse and at the state capitol. I've done it in front of news cameras. Others have done it with me. I'm carrying a Bible in my hand and I'm exercising my constitutional guarantees. And above that, it is absolute insanity. You know, despite the criminal drug ring run by the CIA and the criminal cannabis ring run by the CIA in Colorado, it is insane to think that we have to ask permission or be subject to go to jail for using the world's best and most ancient medicine. And I'm speaking of cannabis. Cannabis has been shown, and I will stick to what I know for sure, to be a cure most. And on top of that, it would make it impossible if the masses started consuming cannabis for them to get away with this, because everyone I know who consumes cannabis is such a superior critical thinker to most others. It seems almost like it is just a tool given by God to be used, which is what it is, because it grows out of the ground. And again, I want to top this little segment off by saying that what I learned from smarter people than myself, like Carl Lentz, and I know this simple concept: God created man, and man created government. So what God creates, I'm not going to really argue with. But what man creates, I will never be under the jurisdiction of. And it's really that simple. I will warn folks. It sounds like we've got mostly folks on the line that have been doing this and are more well informed than myself. But if folks are new listening to this, this sort of activism is dangerous. It is not something that will make you popular. It will make you unpopular. Speaking as a person who was at times in my life a popular person and am not popular at this point. In the same way I used to be when I was, a business owner and a man about town in the city of Richmond. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm much happier now, and for whatever that means, and I'm much more focused on doing something that has meaning, because I think that's what's missing in most folks' life. They don't know what the purpose of themselves being on the planet is. They think the purpose is to watch Dancing with the Stars, or to yell and scream for the Washington Redskins or the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Yankees, or watch Hollywood movies and consume mindless pornographic popular music. I mean, it is what it is. No offense, I don't have anything against what it is, but it is what it is. That's what it is. Or to even to comply with this popular culture now is to comply with these overt satanic and Illuminati rituals. It's not only just like that it's out there and that's what these folks are doing behind the scenes. It's like in order to be a part of the general everyday operations of the American population, one must be subjected to these overt Illuminati, satanic, ritualistic mind control operations, and it's pretty obvious. It's out in the open. It's been documented by folks who get a lot more views than I do. Although a lot of folks have watched other smarter people and myself document every pretty much one of the major crimes of these banking cartels and laid it out there for all to see. I mean, several million people have seen that, but we need a critical mass, and we need a movement where it's going to be the truth and nothing but the truth, and it's going to be these open public dialogues, and with the end goal of gaining control of the currency. And the only way that's going to be done is through armed entrance into the regional Federal Reserve banks and a true audit, not any of this Zionist Rand Paul BS audit, because as we already stated at the beginning of this little segment that we were talking, the Title 31 of U.S. Code demands a more thorough audit every year than anything that either of the Paul family members of Congress are putting forward. And that's a physical audit of all the gold, everything valuable. It's a physical audit. Because at the end of the day, when we take away these algorithmic computer programs and the monetizing of the debt and the toxic derivatives markets, all we will have left are the hard assets. And that's what the people must have. Because we can wind it down. This creating money out of thin air, it only, hyperinflates the economy and devalues the currency. And these things are, don't get fooled by the record highs in the stock market or anything associated with a so-called improving economy like employment rates fluctuating, because that's all just a lie. I mean, there's nothing accurate at all about anything that we hear on the mainstream media in regard to how the economy truly functions, or anything else for that matter. Anything else. And I would like to point out some things over this past week that folks have been maybe not thinking about, but that they run these psyops on us all the time. This Brian Williams psyop is the last bit of glossing over the Iraq War lies. So they're going to put all the Iraq War lies on Brian Williams. And I'm saying that this is not what they're overtly insinuating. I'm saying that this is a purpose that throwing Brian Williams under the bus serves. And also, everything Brian Williams says on the news is a lie. So they're attempting to, make it seem like, oh, it was just this one lie, and we're getting rid of the problem, and the problem is solved. If one gets into studying the way government functions, they will be an expert in human psychology, and they will be an expert in different tactics used to cover things up. And different, it's like, going inside the mind of like a sociopathic liar that wants you dead and wants to steal all your property before that happens. So, I mean, it's really that simple. A lot of folks are coming to this realization. I would love, I can't thank Barbie enough for this opportunity to talk to folks out there, and it's being recorded on this end, and I think in other places too. So I want this to be a starting point. When the Bilderbergs came to Chantilly, Virginia, back in the summer of 2012, myself and others organized something called Occupy Bilderberg. And we had some press conferences. And then the Alex Jones crew, they kind of took over. But I did get the opportunity to go on InfoWars and make a statement from the Bilderberg conference. And basically, we had already contacted the chief of the Fairfax Police and the superintendent of the Virginia State Police, and let them know that these criminals were going to be in Chantilly, Virginia, and that if they did not carry out lawful arrests on these folks, then they were complicit in the crimes. Now, of course, we knew that they weren't going to do that. They were only going to guard these folks. And I'm talking about the members of the Bilderberg Club. And so that was fine. We gave them a lawful order, and they ignored it. Nothing new. That's how every day goes. But we made a statement that later that weekend at Bilderberg through InfoWars and Alex Jones. He didn't really want our message to get out, but I got it out on his network anyways. And others and myself got the message out, through me speaking on a live feed on Infowars.com, and it can be also seen at Disrupting Bilderberg on YouTube. That's just the title of the video. And basically, we said we got all the evidence in the world that the folks inside the Bilderberg conference are guilty of treason. And now all we need to do is figure out how to hold them to account. So we, the people, need to come together in groups. We need to come together in groups and figure out how we're going to do this. I mean, it can be very simple. I know how to, and I've done it many times before. I've seen it done in front of me. But, I mean, we could shut down government meetings very easily. We could show up and take over FEMA meetings. I've been to multiple FEMA meetings. I think, it really catches them off guard when I show up. But say 4 or 5 other folks showed up lawfully carrying their weapons with their video cameras. It takes such a small group of people to get things really done. I mean, as we were saying before, if we could guarantee, I mean, there were thousands of folks out at the Bundy Ranch. If we could, get 300 folks out, to, stand and surround the Federal Reserve Bank, the same kind of folks, armed folks, militia men and militia women out there, we would be on the front page of every newspaper around the world, and that would be the first steps of gaining control. We have to do this in a certain way. We need to do this publicly. We're saying we have the authority, and what's the only thing? And they can't deny it. We've got their fraud on camera. They can't deny it. They're committing treason on camera. Nobody can deny that. So we're at a standstill because they're gaining more power each day that they carry out treason. And each day they carry out this fraud against us, they're gaining more power. Why is that? Because they've got the guns. That's it. So when we contact the police and say, you've got to turn over your guns. So this is a thing where we have to strategically go and publicly meet with them, where we are always more heavily armed. And if we're not, then we require that the arms be handed over to us by whatever sort of government agency is outgunning us. And we'll cite Article 1, Section 13 of the law, and we'll do this very publicly. It's time. It's time now, before it's too late. Before these nuclear false flags start hitting the United States of America, before the shutdown, before the masses are made too stupid for even the smartest amongst them to comprehend these simple concepts, we need to move on this stuff now. And I'm always amenable, and I will always show deference to whoever has the best ideas and is willing to make moves. But we call for actions all the time, and in many cases we do outgun the police at the IRS building or the Federal Reserve Bank, and we do stand out in front of these institutions, making very bold statements while folks are carrying automatic weapons, etc. But we need to do this in a more public and a more official manner. It needs to be more official. I'm doing it as official as I can, but this stuff is never going to work out like us. This government can't be reformed. It's got to be abolished and replaced by a constitutional Republican form of government that's mandated by law. So I want to hear other folks' thoughts on that. If anybody's interested in commenting.
Am I still alive?
Yeah, you're live.
Okay, listen, Chris, look at what we have to do. We have to remain civil. We have to organize. Albert Einstein said it well. If you have knowledge of, you have a duty to inform. We need to inform these masses and unite these masses. We don't have time to build a whole new group. I've been uniting militias all across the United States. We've been working with Kirk McKenzie and Defend Rural America, Bob Schultz, and We the People. We have to unite these masses. We have to. It's going to be about the 3%. It's not going to be about we're not going to get the whole world to come in on this thing, but we got to get enough educated people, enough people that can keep their cool, that can remain civil during a town hearing, to get up there and do their duty. It's a duty. It's a duty to have a militia.
Yeah.
We were given this civic duty to perform, and what we got is a bunch of people that think that freedom is free. Freedom was never free. Men like me and other men went over there and we fought for that freedom. We got that freedom for them. And besides that, the government can give you nothing until they first pick your pockets. It's your money they're spending. And we gotta get out there and organize these groups, and we gotta keep them. We can't just put in a bunch of people that are just gonna go out there and get drunk or whatever. These gotta be people that will do their civic duty and remain civil and do it underneath the rule of law.
Absolutely. That's what we're that's what we're doing around here. We're always within the law, and I will tell you, the government, they are the ones that are rarely quote unquote civil. They are oftentimes violent and at all times unlawful. I agree. I just think. Maybe I'll put a little background into my connections with the militia movement, and I really became aware of the word militia, as kind of a pejorative back in the 1990s, and quickly learned through a little research that the reason for that is because it is the most powerful law enforcement tool under the law in the United States, and actually any common law land, which would be the so-called United Kingdom, Scotland, England, Ireland, Australia, Canada, and when in 2008, and one of my fields of research is like international global geonuclear politics. And back in 2008, I met with a man who was one of the founders of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and his name was Bob Bowman. And I followed a lot of the instructions and teachings of Dr. Bowman, and after he was leaving my house in the summer of 2008, he was heading up the East Coast from Florida, from his home in Florida in his RV, and he spent a couple days in Richmond, and he parked his RV in front of my old house. And after he was leaving there, he had a talk because we were, both. He was a candidate, a Democratic candidate for office at that point, and I was a member of the Democratic Party. And also, I was very unpopular amongst many Democrats because I was, catching them in many crimes. But we were both Democrats, and he stated, well, when I leave here, I'm going to go up to D.C., and then after that, I'm going across the country to the West Coast to meet with militias, because that is the only way that we are going to solve any of these problems that we're discussing. Dr. Bowman passed away a couple years ago, and he was the original director of the Star Wars program. He was in charge of weaponizing space for what they called Operation Bambi, and even before that, which was the nuclear weaponization of space by the institutions that control the United States government. But and through further research, my ties to the Virginia militia go back many generations, including my direct fifth great grandfather, who was a lieutenant in something called the Jefferson Guard, which later became part of the Stonewall Brigade, but at that point was Virginia Militia, the Jefferson Guard, and so these are just simple, basic concepts. It's a natural law of our land and our people, and Dr. Bowman used to write a lot about the connections between the Great Law of Peace of the Iroquois Confederation and the United States Constitution, and I think maybe some folks in New York might know a lot more about that, but that's another one of my areas of study is the law before the formation of the United States government under the United States Constitution. And always, I like to make this clear, as has been placed forward to me by smarter individuals than myself. We, the people, we don't have any obligation to the United States Constitution. That is the rules for our servants. That's not our rules. Those are the rules for the government that we have formed. We formed that government, so therefore we are stronger than the Constitution, because that's just a tool that we create. Those are the rules set forward for our servants.
Let me jump in here a second on that now. The Constitution is the rules, but the Constitution cannot defend itself. When people fail to realize that freedom is not free, and they fail to defend the Constitution, then that's when we lose our country. And Jefferson put some of these things really well when he said that he didn't intend us to have a democracy in the first place. He said when we've forgotten is
Yeah.
where we're at in America today.
That's right.
And now we're going to keep it because the children that we're sending through this Common Core crap that we're sending to school here are not being taught any history.
Yeah, the republic's already lost. I mean, a definition of a republic is a government of, by, and for sovereigns. It's for, those who, self-rule. I mean, we don't have anything like that. We have an absolute, complete nanny state.
Nanny.
Hey, Skip.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll do you one better. My kids are just recently graduated from school. My youngest is 19 now. And neither one of my boys knew how to read cursive until I taught them. Because they have taken cursive writing completely out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And you know what that means? They would not have been able to read the Constitution of the United States.
That's
It's written
right.
in cursive.
That's absolutely true too. What they're trying to do is this is part of the Communist Manifesto. They want to give you the health care. They want to educate your children. And when they get all done, they're going to it'll be the downgrading of the United States. It's going to happen fast. If we allow it, it's going to happen fast because they're trying to control food supplies, health care, and knowledge. What they're trying to control. And we cannot let them get away with it because they're correct. They're after what they want is they don't want just control. They want complete control. I tried to jump in on what Chris said there about the Indians in the North Country and on the gun control issues. See, because the issues of gun control, every country in the world that ever had gun control had genocide afterwards. The first genocide was right here in America. It was the Battle of Wounded Knee, where they took the Indians and led them off to this area, and they were going to promise them education. They lined up 2 Gatling guns and shot 300 of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they did. That was their end result of the complete control. They're get the guns, and that's why they're so afraid right now. They want these guns bad right now because the internet is waking up the people. We're waking up the people at a rapid rate. They're getting a little education here on what's been going on in this last years. They're finding out that in the 1930s they passed a law to confiscate the gold that's still
That's
on the
right.
books today. Seize your gold that you're tucking away. Because some of you people are tucking away some gold in case the dollar fails. They can come seize that. They have a lot of the books that still do it. And I have the original bars here on my desk with their stamp on them, where you seized them before. So people are really waking up here, and they're starting to see what's going on. But part of this, what you just talked about, is out of the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, I'd do one better because Communist Manifesto, that's Marx, who was a protege of Moses Hess. And this is, it definitely is communism. And I think this, a lot of this stuff was also covered in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. And, a lot of folks say that was a, like some sort of manifested and falsely attributed documentation by so-called Tsarist white Russians. But if in fact that was, which I don't think that's necessarily the case, they certainly were more prescient than Nostradamus ever could be, and that's what we have right now. Yeah, it's communism, that's for sure, which is just another arm of this Zionism. Because again, the institutions that controlled the Soviet Union, they were the same institutions that were controlling the United States government, the same institutions that funded the Nazi war machine, they funded the Soviet war machine, they funded the United States war machine, and it's just, a right and a left arm, where they, play these different political constructs off against one another.
Now, Chris, do you know what they say when they get your guns? They say, get on the train. Get on the train, you're going to the ovens.
Yep.
There's been 64 million people on this planet that were led off to the genocide between Russia and China and Germany and all these foreign countries. There's more people than were killed in the foreign wars that they took to those ovens and took to the slaughters and the burial grounds where they just shot them and put them in the trenches.
I want to take that concept and I want to focus on something that's happening right in front of us, and it's being shown on the nightly news. and this ties in with Ferguson, and I know Barbie and I have talked about that subject before, and she's been boots on the ground there, but stuff that is stemming out of this Ferguson, so-called like Black Lives Matter movement is this mass surrender. And I'm not really sure about the story and all of the, side stories that came out of this Michael Brown incident, but I do know that we're catching the police shooting people who are unarmed with their hands up. And I do know that they're having these mass marches and rituals where they are blocking streets in our hometown, or not my hometown, I'm from Hagerstown, but the town I live in, Richmond, where they're blocking the streets, and the police are the ones that are actually doing this, but they're lying down in the streets. And what has led up to that is the constant refrain and chanting of hands up, don't shoot. So these folks are being surrounded by the police, and they're being marched around the city with their hands up, saying hands up, don't shoot. Then they get down on their knees and chant hands up, don't shoot. And then all the time being surrounded by the police, what's the next thing they do? They do these ritual die-ins. So they're saying, like, oh, we're being wronged, and we'll be wronged, and our reaction to that will be to surrender. And then when the surrendering is not good enough, we'll get down on our knees and surrender. And then when that's not good enough, we'll just die. And that's what's happened, that you have I guess, illuminated, in historical terms. But we're watching it played out on the streets of America in mass ritualistic terms, which is just, it's like a psychological operation. Everyone's surrendering.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Because I'm going to tell you that when they get power, they got to have more power. The bigger the tank they get, the more tanks they got to get. Working where I work for the top secret clearance for the government, we knew this. This is all a giant pissing contest. If somebody gets white phosphorus, for instance, in a country that they could drop on these people and lead them up alive, then the other person's got to get it. And our excuse will be, well, we got to bring some up for testing. We got to test this to see what it does. But the truth of the matter is, it becomes a giant pissing contest. We got to get everything the enemy gets, no matter how bad it gets. And these things become like the Hatfields and Okoye. You start these wars over there, like the wars that we started in Afghanistan and Iraq, these places, and you're bringing up this generation after generation of people that want to kill us afterwards.
Right, right, and we don't benefit, and those folks, we just need to tell him who to go after. Go after the Rothschilds. Go after the leaders of the institutions that control the government. That's your enemy, because that's our enemy. And I agree that this always brings me back to Article 1, Section 13, where it says, and we can even reference, Mao, and I'll paraphrase Mao, where he says, all political leverage comes at the barrel of a gun. So if the government has the most guns, what are they going to do? They're going to use it against the people.
Absolutely. It's guns that give teeth to the Constitution.
That's right.
Constitution.
That's right, and that's why we need to have an orderly body in every town, that controls these militarized vehicles, because they're already out. The cat's out of the bag. Unfortunately, the genie's out of the bottle, and they got all sorts of military vehicles roaming the streets and the airways, around where we live, and I presume that it's all over. I mean, I've seen them in Hagerstown, I've seen them in Richmond, I've seen them in Virginia Beach, I see them in D.C., I see them in the D.C. suburbs of Maryland and Virginia, we see them in North Carolina. I mean, everywhere I go, it looks like a military-occupied country, because that's what we have. And
absolutely. You know why? Because they're becoming afraid of the people, because they're screwing the people so bad that people want out. They know that, so they got to get more weapons and bigger weapons and more control over these people before these people wake up and figure out that what they're trying to do is they make taxes in America equivalent to what they've already done in Europe. They've already done some of this in Europe, and they've getting 60-70% of the money for taxes.
yeah.
They want that, but here Agenda 21. Which
That's
is
right.
the other one. They want that to happen here, and they work on it from all ends. When they can't get it to work as Agenda 21, they rename it Sustainable Development. They're masters at the art of redefining.
Oh yeah, because they can change the rules. They're the rule makers that always can change the rules.
And when you're losing, change the rules. Rewrite the book when you're losing.
Right. And that's why we say, no, this is the law. We say it's the law, and you say it's the law too, and we've got proof, because every one of you says this is the law. Now, we require the weapons. We require the weapons that you have right now. That's what we need to be saying to the police at all times, because without that, there is no way we're going to be able to control our currency. And it's a vicious cycle, because the Pentagon doesn't work for free. The Pentagon is the enforcement arm of the owners of the international banking cartel. And so is every other organized armed force under that, federal, city, or state government. They're only armed agents and armed mercenaries for the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank. That's it. So, therefore, we must have all of their arms, and they must publicly turn this over, and at that point, that's the only point when the currency will be able to be, a true currency under constitutional currency, I should say, under Article 1, Section 8 and Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. So, it's pretty...
I went to a meeting in our legislature in Albany, New York, and I spoke to them, and they didn't even know who made the statement, but George Washington said that every home should have a military-grade weapon, not a blunderbuss, and a good supply of ammunition. And so I actually argued with some constitutional attorneys. I do go in and represent myself per se, and I studied the common law exclusively. So I argued with some, and they said, something in the Constitution gives you any ammunition. And they don't understand the three-letter word, arm, or arms. They can't understand
Right.
They seem to have a new definition. And the one that really gets me the most, we were arguing up here on this Safe Act, they call it, that they're trying to restrict the guns and the ammunition. And they seem not to understand the word infringed. You really need to deliver these people a dictionary, because they have some simple terms that they can't understand because they don't want to.
That's right.
And before every conversion is a diversion. A lot of what you're seeing on the TV, I think the 6 major channels are all owned by corporations that don't pay any income tax. They're all owned by corporations that operate. We don't get any news off them, in other words. Basically, they control the news. So we have to wake up in America and figure out what we're getting, and we got to open some minds up and let them see what's really going on here, what's really happening.
Absolutely. I mean, it's imperative. I mean, it's a must. If folks want life to continue, we need to do these things. These, maybe seemingly to many folks unpleasant things. We need to get this done. We do need. We require the weaponry of this government. And just closing up real quickly, because I think we're up against it on the time. I mean, I've got plenty of time, but I didn't know anybody else's schedule. But not only does a dual citizen of the state of Israel control the institution that runs the money supply, but the ICBMs of the United States government are controlled by a guy named General Jack Weinstein. So I think it's very important, and I don't think it should be overlooked that we have our government that's so overrepresented by a foreign country, and this foreign country also has such close ties to the owners of the banks that have enslaved the American people through debt and bonds and interest. And I want to throw the word usury out again, because I know what words mean, and I know what law books are, and one of the law books I use is a King James Bible, and there's a lot of stuff in the King James Bible that speaks out directly against usury, and the U.S. Constitution and Virginia Constitution indirectly prohibits usury, and I wanted to throw that out to folks because basically it's just a usury system, and I don't feel like using people through any sort of ploys. Therefore, I'm unemployable. But I just want to throw those elephants in the room out there, and I appreciate folks hearing about Agenda 21 because that is the elephant in the room as was stated, and it's a predicament that we're in now that requires immediate action, and I wake up every day, just thinking what's the best thing I can do today. Sometimes it's more than others. Sometimes it's just researching, but I'm really thankful that I had the opportunity to speak with all of y'all this evening. I do a lot of these radio shows and stuff, and this is one of the better ones that I've ever been on as far as interaction with listeners, and questions asked, and information conveyed that I didn't know before. So.
Hey Chris, before you run off, let's say thank you to all the new callers who called in tonight. Make sure they know that you're going to be back next week, same time, 8 p.m. Central to 10 p.m. Central. If you have overtime, we have nothing else planned after you for the moment. The call line is open 24 hours a day. We have a Facebook page. All you have to do is request it and join. It's called Patriots Information Hotline. We also have a website located at patriotsinformationhotline.com. Please feel free to join it. All of the logs from all of the shows will be uploaded onto the website so that you can listen to the full thing later. But again, thank you everybody for calling. If there's anybody else who has any questions, please hit the pound button and 6, and that'll take you out of the queue, out of the call, and into the queue so that you can ask your questions before Chris takes off on us.
Yeah, I got some time. If folks want to ask some more questions, yeah, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to keep going. Yep, we'll be back next Saturday, same time, same place, and we'll be covering the same subject, which is really the only subject. If one's involved in politics and the money, banking, and militia issue does not come up, you're involved in a controlled opposition movement, and it's a waste of time. So,
Hey Chris,
yes.
you have a question here. Hold on a second.
Awesome.
Go ahead, caller. You are now engaged.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
Greetings.
It's Cargate. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Carl.
Another day in paradise, so I'm a little late to the party, but was out doing Valentine dinner, and I kind of got in on the last few minutes of this interesting what I've been listening to. It sounds pretty interesting. I was just curious, Chris. As far as your knowledge and your background obviously it sounds like you're pretty well versed in the Constitution, such as I was just curious as to what your take is on as far as the militias in this country being infiltrated by Big Brother and the alphabet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think pretty much as soon as something has a name, it's infiltrated. We have these little tricks and tactics we use where we're constantly changing names of our organizations. And but yeah, we've different organizations that are militia related if not, directly, spouting militia propaganda and acting as a militia. We've had FBI agents infiltrate them. There's video in a number of different places. This has been removed from my YouTube page, but a Secret Service knocking on my front door. This is while I was a candidate for public office, attempting to set me up and drag me off. They were not able to do that. But yeah, I think pretty much, yeah, it's infiltrated. I think these counterintelligence programs are, this is what they do. It's pretty easy. I will say, with very much confidence, one of my areas of expertise is counterintelligence programs in the current political structure of United States freedom movements, both left and right. I've been involved in left, right, center, you name it, political groups, and they're all infiltrated. I see the same folks. We identify them. We will call them out, like, right on camera, like, you're a Fed. You're getting paid by this organization and that organization. It's being led down the wrong path, and maybe we can segue to this, like, where they'll put out a good idea. Like, the militia movement will have a good idea. An armed march on Washington. Okay, let's march on Washington. Let's do it. Like, my family's been around the region, the Mid-Atlantic region, for about 400 and some odd years. Yeah, it's time. That's my turf. Let's do an armed march on Washington. So how do they take that good idea? The Operation American Spring, it starts popping up, and they start taking these kind of like fringe Republican legislative agenda ideas, and they start associating that with the Constitution being reinstated. And then we'll have another actor who I know is a paid agent of Russia Today called Adam Kokesh, and he says that he's going to organize a armed march on Washington at around the same time, the 4th of July and all this other stuff. So then folks start going like, okay, that's a good idea, but let's do it this way. Let's do it the smart way. If you're going to do it, let's do it the smart way. So what these counterintelligence operations and so forth do, we had this with the Occupy movement, we've had this with the Tea Party movement, is that they run these ideas and institutions into the ground. They take the powerful idea of the militia and they neuter it. And it ends up being one guy who menacingly stares at a camera and pumps his shotgun, and is allegedly arrested after that point. What purpose does that serve? None. It's counterproductive, and that's why it's done.
Well, I've been doing Barbie. I've been doing a lot of work. I live in Arizona for the last 8 years now. I've been doing a lot of work on the border when it comes to working. I don't necessarily work with DHS because I've had conversations in the past with them. But for example, the first time about 6 years ago, I ran across a guy and he was all, "So what are you doing out here?" I said, "It's none of your business." He goes, "What do you mean it's none of my business?" I said, "It's none of your business." He goes, "Well, why don't you elaborate?" I said, "Well, I'll elaborate this. You gotta remember one thing, pal. You work for me, I don't work for you, okay? I am a honorably discharged United States Army veteran. I'm a patriot. I'm an oath keeper. I'm a 3%er. And quite frankly, you're on my land. This isn't your land. This is my land." So, over the years, doing stuff on the border, I don't shift my attention too far outside the state of Arizona. But I hear all these delusions of grandeur about, and you hit on, we're going to segue into this, is actually having an armed march. Elaine, do you see that happening, or do you ever see that happening?
Well, I think it could be very easily done, but I also think that it's not necessary to be done. we don't really need a march. We just need it could be so easily done. It could be done, like certain things could be done by a handful of folks that Glenn, who's running the camera, and folks know, some folks know on the call, that we could grab a few of our friends and go down to a Richmond City Council meeting and shut the whole thing down. And still be within the law and still get away with it. I mean, it would just be a matter of how many folks do we have? Oh, if we had 300 folks, man, think of the things that could be done. We could shut down the Virginia government. We could shut down the Federal Reserve Bank for an hour or a day or two. And then once it's done by us, what does that show? That anybody can do it. And it's not that difficult. All you need is some basic simple concepts and, a few dozen people, lawful people with guns. And that they can't run their operation. And we could do that even without the guns. But with the guns, it's more lawful.
Well, see, my whole thing with it is a little something about me. My family were all union. My family came here from Ireland back in the 1880s. Most of my grandparents and great-grandparents were all Freemasons. Okay, so I was listening to you talk about the Constitution, about the government, and how they're doing this and how they're doing this, and it all gets back to the barn. And I've sat around, and I have a copy of the original organic Constitution, and I have several copies of the gossip size one. So I'm the kind of person, I sit back and realistically look at the organic Constitution and the Constitution that we have now. And it's two different pieces of paper. The organic is what I believe in. And if you look back in here, and this is what I'm talking about, you get so many people. I hear all this rhetoric from different groups, different speakers, and everybody's all, I'm sick and tired of this, I'm sick and tired of this. And I'm like, well, why don't you do something? And then everybody shuts up. I don't understand why nobody has done anything about this. And me personally, I'm sitting on the wall. I'm waiting for a deer to come flying by my head because I'm jumping off on the other side of the wall and I'm going to return fire. But it just has to be a planned thing. But it gets back to what you were saying about what like I asked you about infiltration into groups and stuff like this. The government is so corrupt. And they have their fingers in everybody, what they do, their spending, they listen to them. I have the FBI listen to me because I was a patriot and I went to the Bundy Ranch last April. I know, they follow me. They don't get too close because they know better to get too close. But I still have to ponder, when is enough going to be enough? When are people going to stand up and take action? Now, I thought that the pen is mightier than the sword. I ain't buying that, okay? That might have worked back in the days when we were trying to run the bricks out of the country. But I think now the sword is what needs to be used instead of the pen. And then once we do that, we can put the sword down and pick the pen back up. But I just can't for the life of me understand why nobody has tried or why nothing's being done about this. And because of my upbringing and people I've been around and my beliefs and my military career, I have a hard time sitting back and listening to all the rhetoric, and I just don't, for the life of me, can't understand why nobody's done anything. It's not that hard to do.
No.
There's all those groups in D.C. If you went into D.C. with 3%, if you took 1 million armed people and went to D.C. and shut D.C. down, this whole problem would be over with.
I agree. I don't even think it would take that much. That many folks. I really think that COINTELPRO, that's powerful. It is a powerful thing.
But that's what we need right now, because we're right now, this country are no better than the Jews that were led to slaughter. We're no better than the Russians that were sent to gulags. We are so gummed up and sheepalized by the media, which I heard you talk about. All the media, they're all owned by the corporations. They're all part of the big picture. There's two umbrellas running this country, and there's two umbrellas that are running this world. And right now, the less desirable guy holds the other umbrella. This is the one that's running the show. Now, I'll tell you what. When I served, I was anti-communist, but you know what? I would sit down and I would buy Vladimir Putin a steak and lobster dinner and get drunk with him and shake his hand and thank him for having the balls to stand up to somebody that we should be standing up to ourselves. And for the life of me, it pains me, and I don't understand why. That's why I don't get up on these calls and I don't get involved in the politics, because I understand the Agenda 21. I understand the International Monetary Foundation. I understand all this stuff. I've been awake since I was a young kid. But you have to do something drastic in order to make a change. There needs to be a revolution in this country, and it needs to happen as soon as possible. Because if Barry keeps on doing what he's doing, when Barry's gone, don't think it's just going to go away. Because ever since George Bush, Bill Van, then Clinton, then little Bush pushed everybody down the basement, and Barry's been walking around stepping on everybody. And what do you think the next person's going to do after Barry's gone?
Worse.
They're going to do the same thing. They're going to keep stomping on people and running them off the FEMA camps and all this and all that other stuff. But it pains me, my friend, to sit back and not be able to do anything about it. I'm one person, and I could go do something, but what are they going to call me? You'll see me, a picture of me and my dead body on the 6 o'clock news.
Oh, yeah.
And for what? To go after some people that are low-level people, I mean, it's not worth it. That's why it's important that all Americans that are tuned in and know what's going on, regardless of what the FBI or the other alphabet here, we still need to do something. If the only thing that's going to save this country, my friend, is an armed movement, and I don't believe that should need to happen, but I know it has to happen because of what I know and my upbringing and stuff. So, if it can be done peaceably, more power to you. I mean, there's got to be something to do this.
I was just thinking of some tactics, as kind of a tactical movement, and how small these groups could be. This was something some folks and we've been discussing, but it's an old tactic. Each town could be taken over by probably a group of like 20 or 30 folks. I mean, really, because there needs to be a larger movement. But if anything were to go down against the interest of these of the people's representatives, or the militia is how they're being recognized, I mean, where would it come? There would definitely be a chain of command that these orders against the people would have to come down from. So then there would always be a group of about 20 to 30. That would be a minimal number, I would say. They could surround the house of anyone who would possibly be giving out that order, which would, unless these folks wanted to have, the next stage of engagement, clarified for them, would prevent them from acting against them. And then, therefore, we would go on even a more offensive, and we would surround their house and make demands of them. It wouldn't necessarily be their house, and we've, some of us, and it was only peace activists, so-called peace activists, but we've surrounded Dick Cheney's house. Now, I always say this to folks, around Virginia when we start talking about the day that we surrounded Dick Cheney's house. And I said, oh, well, yeah, that was a bunch of peace activists. But imagine if it was more than me that was just carrying a gun that day. Imagine if all 80 people were armed that were surrounding Dick Cheney's house. Because we definitely got 80 people to surround his house. I was standing right there. We did it. I mean, there were cameras pointed at us. Folks saw it. And so, okay, put a gun in every one of these hands and it's a different story. Now you can start taking action. And now you've got 80 individuals that are surrounding the Central Intelligence Agency because it's in the same neighborhood.
Well, I understand it. See, here's the deal. The only reason why the Illuminati has been so effective and they've done what they've done is because they're good at it, and they've been doing it for 1,000+ years. What we, the people, need to do is we need to run their playbook against them. Once we start running their playbook against them, I guarantee you that everything will change.
Yeah.
It's like in Vietnam, we didn't know anything about guerrilla warfare. Then after Vietnam, they have a special warfare school. So what we need to do is we need to start running plays off of their playbook. And once you start doing that, that's the only way you're going to affect the change. I know so many people that are smart constitutionally. I know common law lawyers. I know people that have been teaching the Constitution for 30 years. I know one gentleman that has access still to this day. He's a retired NSA operator. He teaches the Constitution. Okay? It's good that these people are out there and doing what they're doing, but there's nobody willing to pick up arms and bear arms against this country. Our problem is everybody is so dumbed up, and they're all a bunch of sheeple. The Constitution states that we, the people, run this country. The government doesn't run us, we run the government. And what's happened since Ronald Reagan left office is it's progressively gotten worse over the last 30 years. And we need to start running the Illuminati playbook moves and start doing stuff. It's not my son that's going to have a hell of a time when he gets to be older. And I would like to see a bunch of people get go, whether it's peaceful or it's not peaceful, I don't care. But I'm telling you, if somebody stood up somewhere, and I think the best thing to do would be to do a DC thing. Because once you have effectively taken that 10 square miles, I'm telling you what, the whole world will drop what they're doing and glue themselves to the TV. And then, and only then will you be able to affect the change that you need to make.
Yeah, I like the DC idea. I would be definitely amenable to DC. Really anywhere. I think that we focus here on Virginia because this is where we are. Maryland too, but this is also where the nuclear submarines are. It's where a lot of nuclear weapons are. It's where a Federal Reserve Bank is. There's a couple Federal Reserve banks within 100 miles of us right here. It's where a large percentage of the population is.
One of the main fusion centers.
One of the main fusion centers is, a couple miles from where we're sitting right now, like just 2 miles down the road. We're right in the middle of it. We're right in the middle of all of this tyranny. And we like operations here because this is where the country was founded, and also it's so overtly written in the law that we can't do anything illegal or unlawful. It's impossible. We can't do it.
That gets back to you being a fucking American patriot. It gets back to you understanding the Constitution and doing the right thing. It has nothing to do with government, with Big Brother, or the Illuminati, or the IMF, or the globalists. The thing is you guys are sitting in the belly of the beast, and the best place to strike is Facebook inside the building. And those are military tactics that I learned 30 some odd years ago. So, I'm not saying that you guys should run out and let's get a nuke plant, because then you just be out there, then you're having homegrown terrorists. But
of course.
There's got to be something that y'all can do down there that you can get your point across. So I'm going to tell you something. In the last year and a half, I've been traveling around this country dealing with BLM. I've been dealing with Border Patrol. I've been dealing with ICE. I've been dealing with DEA. And I'll tell you what, the general consensus of just the people that I've run into and people that I've talked to, which are tens of thousands of people, that the best thing that you can do is give them a chance. Give them a reason to bear arms. Everybody I know a lot of people. A lot of people were waiting for Sandy Hook. Okay? They I'm not saying it, but up there in St. Louis, in Ferguson. Okay, I was watching Ferguson closely. If that would have been any place other than where it is, and that would have happened to a white person, and I'm not being a racist because I'm just not that way. Even if they moved and rioted and turned on their own town and destroyed it, there were hundreds of thousands of people waiting. All we need is a spark. Okay? We just need a spark. We need the right person to make the right move at the right time. And I'll tell you what. Everybody behind every blade of grass in this country that's a patriot or a veteran, oath keeper, 3%er, they will come out of the woodwork to make this happen. Realize how close we are. We just need the right time, the right place. That's why I went up to the bunny ranch. I don't care about the cows. I don't care about the bunnies, the tortoises, the unicorns. I don't care about a family that's being oppressed. I went there because some asshole had the balls to post corn off an area saying, this is your First Amendment zone. I've been up there because I don't like the government. I don't like BLM. I spent a better of last year going around this country butting heads with the BLM. Okay?
And to help save the cows, you better add them cows back in there.
Well, of course, Barbie, because that's the best hamburger I had since I was a kid. Seriously, it wasn't the fact that they were going after one family. It's the fact that they were stepping over their bounds. They hired personal contractors, which are mercenaries, to do their job. When I was there, I'd go in the Mesquite, take a shower once a week, and I would talk to local people. I talked to local BLM, and they told me that the people that were out there that day at the bridge, that those were all contractors that were hired by BLM to come in and do the PTA. Okay? I'm not saying that all BLM people are bad, but a majority of them are. I had an incident. I went to Blanding, Utah. Okay? I went to Recapture Canyon. The sheriff there told me that there were going to be no people in the hills. Okay? I was there that day. I was leaving. The guy that there sent me a picture, and the picture showed 3 BLM guys with sniper rifles that were walking out the same canyon that a whole bunch of protesters just went down. Okay? That is another, it just gets back to what I'm saying is, all you need, brother, is you just need the right person at the right time, at the right place to set the right spark. Because the fuel is there. There's people all across this country that are so mad and so tired, but they need a reason. They need that reason to justify what needs to be done. So, and I'm the same way. I'm nobody popular. I'm just some poor schmuck that runs around and deals with drug cartels and illegal aliens. But people like yourselves that have a voice, that have a following, need to think about the position that you're in and where you're at and how to get that first little spark, hit that tender to light this big keg of fire. And once you do, everything's going to change. I've been seeing this for the last 20, 25 years. But nobody seems to be that person. I don't want to use the word new Messiah or whatever, but somebody needs to be here to do it, brother.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the infiltration of these of these militia movements and popular populist movements, and also that you brought up like what's the thing that's gonna kick this whole thing off. How you asked the question, how much more are folks gonna take of this before they stand up and do something, and Glenn and I were just like looking at each other when you were saying this, because that's the question that we ask ourselves at the end of every single day. What can we do? Who can we talk to? I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of folks who have worked with us over the years, but again, it goes to a certain point, just far enough to like make them feel, make folks feel like they've stood up a little bit, and then it fizzles out. And that's what we think about, and that's what we're searching for constantly, is that one spark. We're ready to go. When is everybody else going to be ready to go? We've got plans. We just need people. We know how to get the work done. We just need folks, to be in the right position where we can know what to do. And again, we do this sometimes. We'll have demonstrations, and we're not sure whether it's going to be 50 people there or whether it's going to be 12 people there. And if it's 50 people, we have one plan, and if it's 12 people, we'll get a lot done, but we have a different plan. So we just need to know what we're working with. We need to have folks who are honest and
show up.
And will show up and are honorable and comprehend what we're doing. One thing I'm shocked at is I figured that there would be more folks like us. That this would be a thing.
Chris,
Yeah.
you have another caller with a question.
All right, let's go for it.
Here you go, caller. You are now engaged.
Hey, this is Donald in Alabama.
Hey, greetings.
Hi. I am part of the KOA militia, which is the Oath Keepers militia, AOK. And what I did was I went down to the commissioners with a paperwork that I got from Florida when they recognized Santa Rosa County as militia. So I took my militia measure and I changed it to Madison County, Alabama, and I put it across to put on the agenda for a vote. Of course, it went into complete opposition mode. But I read it out loud during the public, time, to give you a couple minutes to talk. So that's how you get stuff put on the record. And I made the news down here, and I got interviewed on the news. Well, what's this about? You want everybody in Madison County, Alabama to be militia members? I said, no, I just want the recognition of the fact that we the people are militia. And when we fall out, because founding fathers taught us, everybody should have their arms ready at hand when they need be. Now, some people are disabled and they can't help, but they can do their own thing, like, they can put water bottles and stuff together to help. So everybody's got a civic duty, and that's what we need to instill back in the American people, is the civic duty part. Without any sacrifice, there is no freedom. There is no liberty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key. Yeah, we do that here in Richmond. It is a great tool to go to a city council meeting. A lot of times, everyone here in Richmond is seen from the city of Richmond down to the North Carolina border on the PBS station live, and then it's replayed throughout the week every night. But yeah, we can reach a lot of folks through those city council meetings, a county board of supervisors.
When they let you speak.
We've had issues in the past with them, cutting us off and even, dragging us out of council chambers, which was a pretty well-known incident. But, it is the most direct thing. You don't have to travel to D.C. You don't have to travel to your state capital. You got a local municipal town meeting or county meeting, everywhere in the United States, and the law applies the same way in every location. The USA, the Constitution for the USA is the law of the land. It gives all power to the people, and it is very, very ingrained in that document that there is no Constitution without the constitutionally mandated right and duty of the American public to be a part of the militia. And that's just it. You can't weasel your way out of it, because obviously when the folks get out of their service, we see what happens. Our country falls apart. I mean, our country's garbage now. It's really a bunch of crap. Like, we don't have any good leaders. We're not producing anything that's furthering the betterment of humankind. We just have nothing really good about what the United States as a country, or the government. Of course, there's nothing good about what the government's doing. So again, that's what we get. Because some folks laid down on the job, including ourselves, we've got a lot of work to do. And the work has to start now. And I commend you for going to the city council meetings in your hometown and catching them. You put in a lawful legal action in a court of record. You set when the court of record is. What's the court of record? Well, the court of record is anything that the people say, because the people are in charge of government. And if the judiciary is part of the government, wouldn't anything that the people say supersede anything out of any judiciary of the government? The answer is yes. So, go ahead, caller. I'm sorry.
That's what you do. You expose them. You show that they're not going to put it on the agenda. Not going to vote on it. You've got the paperwork. They've all got copies of it. You've read it out loud. And then they sit there and they do not follow through because they've already been bought and paid for. They're not there for the people. They're there to control people.
Oh yeah, they're low-level criminals, and they're big fish in a little pond, and they are, exactly like you said, bought and paid for crooks. Criminals, crooks, none of them are any good. And this is a question often asked of me because, I'm known here, maybe in Richmond, as more of maybe just a municipal political figure than, maybe the connection with the militia movement, or a constitutional scholar, a banking analyst. So they asked me a question like it's some sort of accusation that they're making at me. Well, you don't like anybody. Well, okay, like they're putting me on the spot. Name one good politician. I bet you can't do it. And I say, you're right, I can't. Because I know these people. Excuse me, I know these persons. Because they're certainly not people. They're government agents. And that's what the police say when they go, Chris, why are you so accusatory towards me? Why do you think everything I say is a lie? And my response to a man who asked me this direct question, his name is Major Steve Drew of the Richmond Police Department, is simple. Well, Steve, I know you. That's why I'm saying this. I've had many interactions with you in the past, personally and professionally. That's why I'm saying you're a liar, and that I don't trust anything you say, because I notice and take note of your actions. So, yeah, that's right. They are crooks, and you are above them. And we need to start putting this into action where it's just more than us making lawful statements. It's...
You tell them straight out, look, your rule of order says that my agenda has to be approved by at least one of you 7 council members of the commission here. I'm standing before you commissioners with the paperwork. Each of you can see it in hand. I have read it out loud. Now, it's one of you going to bring it to the floor to be voted upon. And they all just sat there in silence.
Well, that sounds very familiar, and I will say that we over the past week and a half or here so in Richmond, we have had many in-depth discussions with city council members about their lack of knowledge of parliamentary rules of procedure, and it has been documented during a live meeting that the president of the Richmond City Council has never even read Robert's Rules of Order. So, I mean, again, we would laugh at these folks. We mock them. We've sat on Capitol Hill and sat with ranking members of the ranking members of the Judiciary Committee and the Armed Services Committee of Congress, and we laugh at them and their lawyers, and we mock them, and we say, "You're ridiculous, you're a liar, you're a fool, and we're laughing at you on camera in your own office." So again, of course these guys, they don't even abide by their own unlawful rules. And they don't even know what they are.
Our job is the people, the civic-minded well times, is not part of a local militia to start your own local militia.
Amen. Amen. Everything else is a waste of time. If you are involved in political activism, or I don't like that word, but if you're involved in the body politic in the United States of America, and you are not familiar and forwarding the ideas of the lawful militia, then you are wasting time and you are counterproductive. I should say one is wasting time and one is counterproductive. I agree 100%. That's the key. Everything that, even before I comprehended these concepts, smarter individuals than myself, who are much more knowledgeable, were putting these seeds in my mind. We're saying, without the Second Amendment, none of the other amendments matter at all. They don't mean a thing, and we knew this before the Constitution was even drafted. We knew it well. And we need to get back to that because, again, don't agree to anything that's against your best interest. Everything that the government puts forward to you, that they mandate, that your servant mandates that you comply with, is against your best interest.
Oh, you're talking about Obamacare now? You're talking about getting the deadline.
I'm talking about that, but not limited to that in any way. Because I don't want to get too far caught up into unconstitutional Obamacare, because then folks might think that, that's something different than every other thing that the government does, which is also unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional at its base. We covered that. We went into great depth, and I know that everyone on this after hours call knows this, but sometimes we here in Richmond, we get caught up into the minutia and go like, well, this is illegal, and then this rule of procedure didn't go forward like it should have, and then it's like, well, wait a second. They bond us in these agreements that we have nothing to do with and enslave us through debt. And all of that is unlawful, and everything else stems from that point. So, of course, everything else beneath that is going to be fraudulent and criminal as well.
Exactly.
So, there we have it. We cannot negotiate with these folks. We are going to make these requirements, and I'm about to run out of time on my phone, I think. So I'm gonna maybe sign off, or maybe I'll see if I can't charge this thing up again.
I'll hear everything.
Yeah, because
See you next week.
yeah, and we'll be back next week. I can even be back before then if folks want to do something.
We'll be on the show tomorrow.
During the week, we have Glenn and I have a weekly show that we do where we got that scheduled tomorrow. So I'm just throwing out there. I go on. It's been maybe about a month and a half since I've been on Al Alam television, but that allegedly has 300 million viewers. and before that, they would put me on Press TV a bunch. But I mean, basically, this is the idea that we've been putting out there, even in those international banking cartel series that they have, you know, for stuff that I do, it has a lot of views and a lot of folks paying attention. So, I mean, we're ready to roll. I really appreciate everything, and I'm really looking forward to the next time we can get together and discuss these issues. And whenever, you know, I'm ready at the drop of a hat. So y'all can just let me know what you think.
Chris, I want to thank you for doing tonight's show. I think you did awesome. I'm sure everybody agrees with me. I can't wait for you to come back next week to do this. So.
Okay. All right. Well,
You can feel free to call in at any time. This line is open and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is Patriots Information Hotline.
awesome. And thanks. You know, maybe we'll call in part of the time tomorrow during the show if there's not any if we're not interfering in any way with anyone else. So yeah, I'm gonna sign off, and I'm gonna thank everybody who called in and listened, and you know, just anybody who's pushing forward this agenda. You know, it's the most serious issue that we face, and I thank you all, and God bless. Thank you very much.
God bless you, and happy Valentine's.
All right, happy Valentine's, everybody. Peace out.
I think that went pretty good.